Okay, so the EU. I'll break this one into a few, because it's quite big. But if we start off, kind of what is the EU? Then really, what you'd say is that the EU is it's a closely integrated set of economies. That's the starting point. Yeah, so there are clear trading links between them, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and on top of that, there are political and budgetary arrangements in place as well. And what we really say, the simplest way of kind of explaining the EU is well, I mean, it's a mixed thing. So it has both economic and political and fiscal dimensions. That's the point. People normally refer to it as a single market, which is kind of economically probably the key. But when I talked a minute ago, about the idea that it was a closely integrated set of economies, well, what do we mean by this idea of integration? And it's kind of integration really refers to kind of how easy it is to do business in one country compared with another. So if I'm in France, how easy it is for me to do business in Germany, to invest in Germany, to transfer money to Germany, and so on and so forth. Obviously, the very the least integrated economies are ones that have kind of no deals of any sort at all between them. And they purely trade or don't trade, and so on. The next level of integration up are what are called free trade agreements, or free trade areas. They can be. So free trade agreements generally center around goods. So for example, the EU has a free trade agreement with Canada. So there are certain things that Canada can that we can sell to Canada, Canada can sell to us, and usually this basically tends to mean there are no tariffs, no quotas, and so on and so forth. But there's not much more than that. So we're closer than having no deal at all. There are certain things where we've facilitated the movement of goods in particular, but there's not much else. After that, you have what's called a customs union. So Turkey is in the EU's customs union. What that means is that you have free trade deals, and also you have, so it's free trade, plus you also have what's known as a common external tariff on goods in which you trade freely. So what that means is that if France has a 20% tax on foreign cars, or cars from the US, then so too does Turkey. So this is normally the case where countries are kind of very close to one another. You need to have the common external tariff, because if it wasn't the same, if the tariff was lower in Turkey than in the EU, then no one would ever import things into the EU. They just import them to Turkey and then use the free trade deal. So that's good. Again, it's making those economies kind of even more closely knit. The next step along is kind of how closely in terms of kind of trade integration. The next is what's called a single market. And really, most of the EU, all EU members, are also members of the single market. So this is, if you kind of say what is the EU, kind of most commonly for everybody, it's this idea of a single market. And a single market is much more than people think it is. People tend to think of it as a free trade area or something like that. Where, I mean, and obviously that's true. There is free trade. There are obviously no tariffs, no quotas, no protectionism, and so on and so forth. But it's much more than that, and I think that's really important to understand. There are no non-tariff barriers, or other barriers at all. The point about a single market is that it's no more difficult. If I'm a German firm, it's no more difficult to sell something in Berlin than it is to sell it in Rome or in Paris, or in Budapest, because the trading rules, or kind of the standards under which goods and services are going to be traded, produced, and so on, are identical. So in the same way, as a German firm in Berlin, could sell things in Frankfurt simply by putting them on a lorry and taking them there, so too could that same German firm do exactly the same with Rome. It would literally put them on a lorry, and there would be no meaningful checks between Berlin and Rome. It would simply send that stuff as if it was inside Germany, and that's really, really closely integrated. It really means that there's almost no difference between selling abroad as there is at selling at home. We're creating really a single economy, except for one problem, which is obviously kind of if you were to take Poland, Poland still uses the zloty, whereas Germany has the euro. So there is one way in which Germany and Poland, for example, aren't fully integrated, which is they don't have the same currency. And that's the last stage of integration beyond a single market. A single market gives you economic union, but you can go one stage further and you can have monetary union. In the EU, that's the idea of the Eurozone, where some of those member states use exactly the same currency, the euro. And at that stage, really, there is now no difference. Germany and France obviously both have the euro. There really is no difference for a German firm selling in France as there is in that German firm selling in Germany or indeed Italy, which also uses the euro. So hence, those economies are very, very closely integrated, as closely integrated pretty much as you're likely to get, without actually becoming the same country with the same government.